Welcome to Your Journey. I'm your host, Chuck Lewis, and we got a special guest with us today, and Eugene Jarvis, aka the Legend. What's going on, man?
Not much, man. I'm happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, man. I appreciate you coming on, man. Obviously, man, there's a lot going on right now. Dealing with this COVID-19. Everybody's had to make a lot of adjustments. How have you adjusted to this, what they would say is new normal?
It's been tough, man, especially at first. I had COVID last year. So that was a process. I lost my smell, lost my taste. So
Wow.
I didn't really, so that's when I knew like, oh, this is real. So I was down probably for about 2 weeks. Thank goodness I didn't have to go to the hospital or anything like that. And I was able to shake back, but COVID's real. Besides that, family's doing well. Thank goodness none of my parents, siblings or anything like that got it. So that was a blessing within itself. But other than that, man, just going along with the times we're in, trying to, look for more positives than there is negatives.
Yeah.
And, just taking it as it comes.
Nah, I appreciate you sharing that story, man. I'm glad you got back healthy, man. COVID's no joke, man. I know some other people personally that have came down with it. I'm glad you was able to bounce back, but ultimately, at the end of the day, man, everybody's got to take the proper precautions, be safe, wear your mask, and just try to do the right things, man, to stay as safe as possible. But let's get right into it, man. So, Eugene Jarvis, you're from the Pittsburgh area. Talk about what it was like growing up in Pittsburgh as a kid.
Oh man, just like you said, being a kid, we were able to be kids back then. I grew up in East Liberty, um, always outside playing with your friends, whether if it was street football, at the basketball court with your boys, riding bikes, playing games, racing pole to pole, things like that. Collecting football cards,
Yeah, yeah.
playing video games, things like that. But I grew up with a lot of competitive people. Just my friends alone, like we're all competitive. And I think that kind of shaped and molded me and different things that I was put into. I didn't have to pay bills, didn't have no responsibilities. You know what I mean? The only responsibility was be in front of the house when the street lights come on.
Yeah.
So when you look at it like that, it was stress free. But I had a great upbringing, man. My mom raised me, me and my sister, and she took pride in that and made sure whatever we needed, we always had. And I'm very thankful for that. So like I said, man, it was cool, man. It's definitely a lot different now than it was then, but there's still some things that still apply.
So you've been an athlete pretty much your whole life. At what age did you start playing sports?
I started playing sports when I was 8 years old. I was, like I said, growing up, we used to play street football. So a friend of mine, his dad had coached for the Kingsley Knights. And he went up and told his dad, like, yo, there's this kid that's playing street football. And he's actually pretty good. You should probably talk to his mom to see if he could play. And he did that. And my mom was a little nervous at first, but she said, why not? I mean, if you want to play with your friends, I know you're in good hands.
Yeah.
So she went with that. And I started my career with the Kingsley Knights at 8 years old on the twerp level. Played there throughout my whole little league career. Learned a lot. Had some phenomenal coaches, phenomenal teammates. Learned a lot, hard work, accountability, discipline, things like that were instilled in me. Won a lot of games, didn't lose much. So that winning culture kind of like helped propel me to like different levels and helped shape mold me, you know what I mean? So at the time, like sports, it was just fun. You know what I mean? I didn't know how important it really would be later on down in life, but it was just fun just playing with your friends. Everything you're doing on the street football, you pretty much doing just with referees out there.
Yeah.
And that's how I pretty much looked at it at the time. So it was just having fun.
Nah, man, that's great, man. So you attended Central Catholic High School. What was your experience like there as a student and as an athlete?
It was different. I mean, you hear so many different stories, good and bad, coming to a prestigious school like Central Catholic. It was a change in structure. It was kind of like pretty much like a college prep high school, but for high school standards, you know what I mean? And you coming in with new kids. It's an all guy school, so that's a challenge, you know what I mean? Coming from grade school. Nobody wanted to do that. But you're coming with a whole different group of guys. My '05 class, I was blessed coming with a good class, and we all stuck together. Just learning the format, the structure, the traditions there, and I'm trying to adapt as best as possible. Now, as far as the athletic side of it, that was a challenge too. coming from Kingsley, playing with your homeboys all your life, and all that chemistry y'all build from coming up together. So when I got to Central playing ninth grade, it was like a lot of these dudes is new dudes. You got to fill them out. You got to prove yourself, and everybody was that dude back in Little League, but now it's like you're on the high school level, so it's like you're starting over. So that was a process, but like I said, like anything else, you just got to get in there and adapt. So as a freshman, taking all that head on as far as the school and football and things like that, like it was a challenge, but like anything else, as you go, you adapt to it.
Yeah, you definitely adapted to it. So in your junior season, you put on a legendary performance in the WPIAL championship game. You scored 5 touchdowns, and you helped lead Central Catholic to the first ever WPIAL championship. What motivated you to have such a dominant performance?
Well, before that performance, you got to think Central Catholic they were on the cusp of reaching new levels, but we know back in that area, as you can attest, being a Woodland Hill Wolverine, like y'all were the standard back then in quad A football. So we knew coming in, like, in order for us to beat a champ, we got to beat the champs. But we also didn't know what type of team we had neither, and coincidentally, we played y'all in the regular season, and real good game. We were actually losing, I want to say maybe about 38 points. Like, y'all scored the first play of the game. That's how real it was. But at halftime, I mean, our coaches kept us motivated, and he said, just keep playing, don't look at the scoreboard. Coming out in the second half, we ended up having a big play from wide receiver that kind of sparked the momentum. And the next thing you know, we just kept trucking along, and we ended up tying the game, going into overtime. Now, mind you, at this point, we didn't know what type of team we had. Like we were pretty good, but we still just didn't really know. And then when we went to overtime, we got the ball first. We scored. You all got the ball first. However, y'all went for 2-point conversion, and y'all actually got it. I remember it was out pattern. Devin Lyons caught it on my guy, and y'all won the game. So we lost on a record, but as far as a learning lesson, like that kind of like pretty much shaped Central Catholic moving forward from that point. That was like our defining moment. And I remember when we got back in the locker room, everybody was down and mad, but it showed what type of team we really had, a real resilient team. And one of our players, Jamison O'Donnell, he had wrote like a poem, and he headlined it Band of Brothers. And when our head coach had read down in front of us in the locker room, that like right there, like changed everything. And we used that momentum to move forward and landed us in the WPIAL championship.
Wow.
And coincidentally, again, we played y'all again in the semis. We ended up beating y'all 19-0. So with that victory, that right there let us know, okay, we just beat the big dogs in the WPIAL. So now why not us? And we ended up getting to the WPIAL championship, played Upper St. Clair. And like you said, I've always prided myself on big players make big plays in big games. And I know with a platform like that, like there's people who's probably never seen you play before, and you're gauged off of games like that. So I figure the bigger the lights, the better the performance. And we had a great week of practice. Our head coach, he had put everybody in position. We all facets of offense, defense, special teams. We were clicking during practice, so we pretty much were prepared and ready for what was to happen on Saturday. And to kick things off, I mean, the third play of the game, man, I caught a seam pass from my quarterback, Shane Murray, and that was my first touchdown. And then a couple of series after that, I ended up returning a punt return, 89 yards. And next thing you know, our defensive back pick 6, we're up 21-0. So then we pretty much just put the pedal to the metal. But, like I said, it's all about momentum, man. Once you get in them big games, you want to leave an everlasting impression. And I was able to do that.
No, you definitely was, and you left a lasting impression for that season. So you finish out the season with over 2,000 all-purpose yards, 39 touchdowns. You were named WPIAL Player of the Year as a junior, and then you were also named First Team All-State as a running back. How did it feel to achieve those accomplishments in your junior year?
Man, I mean, it was a great feeling, especially being that. I mean, as you know, I'm not the biggest player. You know what I mean? So it wasn't expected, especially as a junior, to win that with like great players. As far as like the Darrell Reeveses, he was a senior. Adam DeMichael, Andrew Johnson, Neil Walker. You know what I mean? So when you name guys like that, and then you end up becoming like the player of the year, like that speaks volumes. And it wasn't easy, but again, it was a testament to my teammates because without them, I wouldn't have been in position to achieve that goal. And my head coach put me in position to succeed. So overall, I mean, I would say it was a great accomplishment. But I also know coming into my senior year, I'm gonna have to do all that again because the expectation is high. I never wanted to be a one-hit wonder.
Yeah.
So that was always a challenge.
So in your senior year, you take your game to the next level. You lead your team to a 16-0 record, win the school's first ever state championship. You know, what was that whole experience like for you?
Well, you got to think my junior year, even with all the accolades I've achieved, there was one that I didn't. We had our first WPIAL championship, but we ended up losing the state championship to a very good North Penn that beat us that day. So that was all the motivation that we needed as a team coming into my senior year. One thing I knew was everything I did my junior year, all the accolades that I've achieved, I had to do that all over again. If we won the WPIAL, we have to win the WPIAL again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like coming into that season, everything was business. It was a business trip. Every game, starting from the off season. When I say like sacrifice, everybody on that team sacrificed. Off-season workouts paid off, man, and we put together a real strong season. I'm going 6-0, like you said, but that whole path and journey wasn't easy. You got to think like we were going up against like the Upper St. Clair's led by Sean Lee, the Penn Hills led by 9-10 Division I players alone. I can go down the whole list. Then you got guys like Bishop McDevitt, LaShawn McCoy. So I mean, like when you start mentioning certain names during that whole 16-0 season, like there was nothing easy about it. But you know that's just a mark of a champion, and we were fortunate enough to finish off what we did last year and win the state, be the first team to win the state championship 16-0. So that was a feature that was really a great accomplishment, and I was able to win Player of the Year again, first player to win back-to-back. So that was big, and I was able to accomplish everything I did my junior year and do it again. So that just showed, you know, just that chip on your shoulder, man, and just, you know, just showing consistency. Yeah, because that's what you're measured off of.
Now, I think when you talk about legendary performances, we look at that junior year, what you did in the WPIAL championship game, and then you go to your senior year, you go 16-0, and then you end up getting all the accolades that you did. But where you really think about it, you won back-to-back WPIAL Player of the Years, which I don't think has ever been done like you talked about. You look at the guys of LeVar Arringtons, the Brandon Shorts, the Steve Brestons, all these guys that have played over the years. Justin King was in your era too. Andrew Johnson, Ryan Mundy, all the big time players, Tutu Ferguson, Lusaka Play. I mean, there's been many guys. Cecil Howard, I'm not sure if you're familiar with him, but there's a bunch of guys.
That triple option.
Yeah. For sure, but there's been a bunch of guys that have came through the WPIAL, and for you to do what you did, and I think one of the things that we need to highlight is you were 5'6".
Right.
All those guys that I named are pretty much 6 foot and above. You were a guy that was a smaller guy that did it at a high level. And I think that's where the legend of Eugene Jarvis begins. And so you just continue your success. You decide to commit to Kent State University. You know, what made you commit there? And then what other schools were interested in you?
Well, after that, the one thing about that long 16-0 season we had, recruiting kind of took it back in for all of our players. So while a lot of players were visiting schools and things like that, like we were so laser focused on our goal that year that we really weren't focused as far as college at the time. So a lot of other players and things like that were taking visits and we weren't. So I had a scholarship out from Pitt, West Virginia, Akron, Bowling Green, and Kent State. I'm at like Iowa, Penn State. They were all interested, but you know, like you said, at the same time, I was a small running back, so a lot of big schools weren't really taking a chance on a guy like that coming out during those times. Pitt ended up pulling my scholarship. West Virginia filled up more running backs, and so I only went on 3 visits. Coincidentally, I went to Akron, Kent State, and I went to Temple. My Akron visit. Had a great visit. A guy you had on your show, Jason Montgomery, J-Mont. He was my host, man. Showed me a good time, man. Real good, solid dude, man. Went to Kent. unfortunately, when I went to Kent, I went when school was on winter break. So I didn't really get the full
Wow.
experience
Yeah, yeah.
of like what it was like to be up there. And I went to Temple, but that was only a 2-day visit. I was in and out because I had to do it during the week because the recruiting period was coming to a close.
Okay.
But Akron was my first, not Akron, Kent State. They were my first offer.
Yeah.
And they really, really, really wanted me. However, during National Signing Day, since I had so much fun on my Akron visit, it was one of them things where I verbaled, but my mom never signed a letter of intent and faxed the papers over. Okay. So when I talked to the Coach Brookhart and Coach Moorhead, I told them I'm a verbally commit, but they never got my papers. And my mom, she never signed them. And you know, they say you got to trust your mom's instinct.
Yeah.
And I was mad at first, but then I had to really think about it too, because Akron wanted to gray shirt me. So they wanted me to come in January. So I kind of looked at that like a slight at first, but when I went on that visit, there was a lot of other PA guys that was up there with me. And, when you go on them type of visits, like you kind of want to play together, you know what I mean? And see if we can like turn things around. Yeah. So that all that played in my head at the time. Yeah. But then it was one of them things where it was like, all right, well, what does my mom know that I don't know? Or what does she see that I can't see? Right. So maybe like 2 or 3 days went on and she just said, I just don't feel comfortable about signing the papers. I think you should go to Kent State. Yeah. And hat off to my recruiting coordinator, Coach Vance. He did a heck of a job recruit. And like I said, they were my first offer. And you could tell when somebody really wants you. You know what I mean? It didn't matter what was going on or however, like he played the course, he did what he's supposed to do, and they showed effort. And I ended up signing a letter of intent to Kent State.
Nah, man, that's big, man. So you're coming from the Pittsburgh area. Like you talked about, you grew up in East Liberty. What was that transition like going to Kent State, going to Northeast Ohio? What was the transition like athletically and academically and personally?
Where do I begin, man? It was tough. Like it was my first time going away from home. And then learn a whole new state. Yeah. Ohio, they're real big on football out there. So, that's a big football state. But I reached adversity coming into Kent, went into training camp, and then found out that one of my courses at Kent at Central didn't qualify.
Wow.
So therefore that set me back, and my SAT scores didn't balance out with my GPA. Wow. So therefore I had to sit out that year until I passed the SAT. So during that whole freshman year, I was a regular student. I had to come out of pocket. And during that time, it was rough because I had already qualified. I was good to go. But like I said, with that one course in high school, I didn't know anything about that. Now, a lot of bigger schools might have been aware or had an idea of that. And that might have been another reason why maybe 1 or 2 offers didn't come in. But I wasn't aware of that till I got to Kent. And then so that was tough, being away from family, dealing with that, not playing football. Yeah. First time not playing football for however long. And then just being a student. I mean, that alone is an adjustment. And I had to learn that. Like I said, it's one of them things like you're on your own now. Yeah. This is where you really grow into the individual you're going to be moving forward. So academically, it was like one thing I learned, the key thing is time management. Yeah. Yeah. You know what I mean? Are you going to party or are you going to do your work? You know what I mean? So I kind of fell in between, and one of them things where it was like, I'm a party, and with me not having football, it was one of them things like I was always coming home every weekend. Then I would drive back up, go to school. I couldn't go to practice, couldn't go nowhere near the football facility. Right. So that was frustrating. I'm not really paying attention, buckling down on my academics. So that became an issue. And the turning point as far as academically was when I had a meeting with my recruiting coordinator. He told me, he said, there was a period where you got reports, and he had got a report where I had 2 D's and an F. He said, if you get 3 Fs, there's no freshman forgiveness. Like you're going back home. So when he told me that kind of like really opened my eyes and let me know, like, I got to buckle down, man. Cause the last thing I want to do is, let my mom down and be back in Pittsburgh and everybody asking questions. Yo, what happened? What's this? What's that? You supposed to be playing, da-da-da. So that's one thing I didn't want to happen. And that was probably the turning point there, my freshman year, and me trying to transition.
Yeah. Well, you was able to make that transition. So in your redshirt freshman year, you started in 11 games. You led the team in rushing. What was the most important thing that you learned that year?
College ball is nothing like high school ball. I mean, you got to think being a freshman, I missed the whole year. So therefore, I didn't have all the workouts in the off season that everybody else had. I was thrown in the fire, so I was kind of going off my natural ability. But it was just a learning course because it was like I was excited at the same time.
Yeah.
But I kind of knew after my first game, we played Minnesota at Dick Stadium, and I had 19 carries for 109. And so after that game, that kind of like, that game momentum gave confidence, and that kind of let me know like it can be done. I just got to just stick with it and just keep going. And like you said, I had a pretty productive redshirt freshman year. It wasn't bad, but I knew like I learned so much. Just the speed of the game changed, the terminology, things is going so fast, and like you said, you still got to adapt to being a student as well.
Yeah.
So you put all that together as a redshirt freshman, like it's a process. So it was tough to take in.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's important that you brought up is like learning how to juggle your school with football. Like your first year, you really was just focused on school. You didn't have football, but then once you start playing and then you're starting, so you got to know the playbook, just like you got to know your biology book. Right.
Yeah.
And so learning how to manage your academics during the season, when you're a priority player, you're a guy that's getting, 70, 80% of the snaps. That's completely different than when you're redshirting or for like you had to sit out for academic reasons. And so learning how to juggle that is huge because you got a lot of responsibility on you from a playing standpoint. And as you know, I mean, it's almost like you're getting the football academics outside of just your normal academics because you got to take quizzes before games on those Fridays before games. I mean, the game plan changes, maybe midweek because the coach saw something during film. So just a lot of things that have to happen and that you had to adjust to, but you were able to make the adjustment. In your redshirt sophomore year, you take your game to the next level. You break the single season rushing record at Kent State with 1,669 yards rushing. You were first team all MAC at running back. What went into that offseason for you to perform at that high of a level?
Well, like I stated before, that redshirt freshman year, I learned a lot. Like you said, one thing about football, it's going to demand its time and its hours.
Yeah.
And you have to juggle outside of that, your academics, and you also have to have a life as well. So with that sophomore year coming in, I knew that I had to make a jump. So therefore I knew I took a serious focus into my strength coach, Coach Jacoby. I knew I had to be durable. I knew I was the guy, you know what I mean? So I had to make sure I was prepared physically, not only physically, but mentally as well going into that season. And I was in that weight room, man, knocking it out. I mean, like trying to get PRs as far as my bench press, my squat, power cleans, things like that. And I always gravitated to the older guys, you know what I mean? Like there was a guy, Jack Williams, I was under his wing. So he would get the workouts probably like an hour early, the morning workout. So I would be there right with him, you know what I mean? Learning, seeing how the ropes and seeing how I go. And, just that competition thing, iron sharpens iron.
Yeah.
So, you kind of want to lead by example, but the main thing for me was just like that weight room. I know I had to be durable. When you look at your schedule, you see teams like Ohio State, you see Kentucky, you see Iowa State. So, I mean, them was games where it's like you're on a big stage and you want to prove yourself. Not taking nothing away from the MAC games, but as you playing in the MAC, you know how it is when you going into the Horseshoe or Blacksburg, Virginia Tech, something like that. Like those are experiences, but you also want to handle your business and let people know like you're here to stay. So I took a strong emphasis, like I said, with the weight room, and I got in the film room as well. Things slowed down as far as like assignments, blocking assignments, things like that. I knew the offense a lot better. I was able to pick up on defenses and different things like that. So my offensive coordinator, man, he put me in position to succeed. Whether it was catching the ball at the backfield, designing plays, run plays, things like that. Offensive line did a heck of a job, receivers, quarterback, everything, you know what I mean? So just put all that together, man, and just try to prove myself all over again. Like I said, it's not high school, you know what I mean? So it's the next level. And again, you gotta prove yourself all over again.
No, you definitely did that. You had a great sophomore year, but your junior year was completely different. You pretty much were plagued by an ankle injury all year. What did that do to you mentally as you're going through that year? You had a really great sophomore year. You're putting yourself in position to be coming up in those conversations for the next level about what you did in your sophomore year. You go into your junior year, you start off with a bang, and then you're kind of pretty much plagued by like this ankle injury. What did that do to you mentally?
It was tough. I mean, because I think coming off of all that success I had the year before, the expectations is very high. I was coming back to the nation's leading, a returning rusher in the country at a MAC school. You know what I mean? So all eyes was on Kent State, and I knew that one thing I knew was you had to be consistent.
Yeah.
If you do it one, you got to do it again.
Yeah.
But on the flip side of that, when you reach success, there's always going to be adversity. Yeah. So like you said, when I had that high ankle sprain, if anybody can attest to having a high ankle sprain, that's probably one of the worst injuries you can have, especially when you're doing the season, because in order for you to fully recover, you need rest.
Right.
And unfortunately, I had a high ankle sprain, so that kind of set me back. So it was tough mentally, just, like not having the success that I had sought out in the beginning of the year, knowing like my expectations, my goals that I wanted to accomplish, I wasn't able to do that. So it was tough, but I knew that this was another challenge, and I knew somewhere along the line adversity was going to come. I just didn't know when. Yeah. And then it kind of came my junior year.
And then things kind of take a turn for the worse. You finally bounce back, battle through your junior year, and then you get to your senior year, and you suffer a season-ending kidney injury in the Boston College game. What was the cause of that injury, and what's the first thing going through your mind as you're walking off the field?
First of all, man, it's my senior year. Yeah. So you got to think just that alone, like I have aspirations of playing in the NFL. So we're playing Boston College up there. It was a draw play. I got the handoff. One of the linemen shot the gap, came through, hit me. I stumbled back. I broke that tackle, bounced to the outside, and route again in probably about 12, 15 yards. I get hit by three people. I get hit in here, and in my back at the same time. Big hit. Man, I hit the ground, and you can hear the crowd say, "Woo!" You hear "woo." It's like it's not good. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, I know there's NFL scouts in the stands. I don't want to lay there. You know what I mean? I'm already a small back, so they're looking for any negatives. You know what I mean, to put on my resume for that next level. So I get up like ain't nothing happened. But it definitely rung my bell. Like I felt every bit of that. Jogged to the sideline, man. Talked to my coach. He said, "Are you all right?" I said, "Oh, I'm cool. I'm fine." You know what I mean? But when I took a couple of deep breaths, I could feel it in my side. Wow. So it was like I just didn't know, like, all right, the extent of the injury or what was going on. You know what I mean? I still wanted to play. In my mind, it's like NFL. Like I got to finish this game, Boston College scouts and things like that. So, yeah, I mean, so that's pretty much what happened with the hit and the experience.
So later on in that year, you discover by talking with the doctors that you were actually born with only one kidney. Once you got the news, where's your mind at? Like once you found out that information, like you never knew that your whole life. Here you are as a guy that you dominated your whole life in football. And then you talk to the doctors after you had the kidney injury and found out you only have one kidney. You were born that way. Mentally, when you get that news, what are you thinking?
Man, I'm thinking my career. I mean, what's next? Because like I said, when I was on the sideline and I took those deep breaths, I go into halftime and I'm urinating in the stall, and it was red. So I'm thinking this in my mind. I'm thinking this Gatorade. I don't know. The last thing on my mind is this blood. So when I left the stall after I flushed the toilet, unfortunately my head coach was coming behind me, and he had asked a teammate, said who had just left. And when he came over to me, he said, "Was that you?" And I started, me, I'm thinking, no, it wasn't me. And he was like, "Yes, it was." So he was like, "We're going to take your helmet and you're not going to play the rest of the game." So I'm furious. Like I'm trying to get back in the game. Like I said, all these things is playing in my mind. Like NFL, man, scouts, like I got to play. But they took my helmet. I couldn't play. We flew back to camp, went to the hospital, and they're running tests and things like that. And the doctor comes into the hospital and he's asking me all these questions. So he asked me these family questions about kidneys and different things like that. And I'm just like, "Oh, no, I'm fine. Everything's cool. So he tells me, he said, you lacerated your kidney. So in my mind, I'm like, what's a laceration? I'm it's a cut. So I said, "Oh, all right, cool." So I said, I'm only out, 2-3 weeks? When I come back? So he gave me that look like, I'll get back to you. So he left, he came back in. And he was like, you're done for the season. Right then and there, like mentally, everything just broke down, and like I started crying and everything. It was tough because it's like I've never missed a whole season, so nothing was surreal to me at that moment. And then as he's looking, he's asking me, he's continued asking me these kidney questions as if like I knew, and then he said like, "Do your family have any history of like kidneys?" And I'm like, "No, not to my knowledge, I wouldn't know." And that's when he told me, he said, "Well, you only have one kidney." I'm thinking to myself like, "Wow, like."
It's crazy.
Okay. When can I get back on the field? You know what I mean? But mentally, I can see look on my trainer's face, the doctor's face that this was something real serious. And mentally, man, like I was broken down, man. It was tough. Like that's the last thing I wanted to hear in my senior year. All my dreams and aspirations that are right in front of me, kind of feel like it's taken away.
Wow.
So it's like I'm calling home, calling my parents, calling my friends, and letting them know. And by then, the news had already got out. Not so much my one kidney, but just more so that my injury and the severity of it. And then when they come to find out I only had one kidney, it was just like, wow, you know what I mean? Because you only know that, I believe if you get like a CT scan when you're born and things like that. So, but when you look at things like that, it kind of worked out because it was a blessing in disguise. Now that I look back, because if my mom would have knew that I was born with one kidney, I probably wouldn't have played football if I'm not mistaken. You know what I mean? So when you look at things like that, it's like God knows what he's doing. It's just all about the timing. So that was a blessing in disguise, man. But but to answer your question as far as mentally, I'm everything. I'm everything. I'm shocked. I'm stunned. I'm trying to figure out what my future holds. Like the recovery. Can I make a full recovery? Will I ever be able to play again?
Right.
All these questions running through my head. So it was just like, what's next? You know what I mean? Like when you're on bed rest and you're just sitting there, like you see your name on the bottom of the ESPN ticker saying Eugene Jarvis out for season last week. It's like, wow, like this is for real.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And thank God that I have a strong supporting cast, of family members and friends that stuck with me through that time and was able to keep me uplifted. Kent State University faculty, they did a great job. My coaches' wives and things like that, like they really showed up and showed out for me throughout the whole process of uncertainty.
Yeah. So you get an opportunity to come back for a 6th year. The NCAA grants you a waiver to come back and play your 6th year. What was that last year like? What was the experience like coming back from that injury? And like, what's your mentality and approach to going into that last year?
Well, my mentality is I got to get back out there.
Yeah.
First and foremost. It don't matter whatever it is. Like I said, I've been playing football my whole life. So I'm not going to let nothing like this take it away.
Right.
Now, with that being said, this was a whole process of getting back because I had to make the doctor said I'd make a full recovery, but as far as you playing football in the future, that's not looking too good. So I recovered from bed rest. I'm trying to work my way back. But again, there's so much uncertainty because that 6th year wasn't a guarantee. My coach had to go to bat for that. He went to bat.
Right? Probably had to file a waiver.
Yeah, like he had to file. I mean, he had to go through the whole process, man. So like that wasn't as easy as you would think it was. Like he really put his job on the line for that. You know what I mean? For me to get my year back, and I appreciate him for that. But just like it was tough mentally because it's like I'm starting from scratch.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I'm in the weight room and 135, I can't get up. You know what I mean? Like pull-ups, I can't do one pull-up. Like it was very humbling, and it's like I got a long way to go. On top of that, I don't know if I'm gonna still come back because they still haven't cleared me yet. Yeah. So because the school got to protect themselves as well. So it's like my coach and them, they're really like, I don't know. I mean, you can still try to work your way back, but it's like we still gotta see. You know what I mean? Medically, can you do it? So my biggest thing was just like, all right, put it in God's hands, stay strong. I had a lot of positive encouragement behind me. A lot of support system that really helped me through it. And my biggest thing was I just took it as another challenge. I will get back, and I'm going to get back on the field one way or another. And thank God I did. You know what I mean? But it was a long process, man, mentally, physically. I had my down days. I had my good days. But the good days outweighed the bad days. And it was a process. But all in all, it all worked out. And I ended up having a meeting with my doctor, my mom, and my coach. And they asked me, they said, I don't recommend you, you know what I mean, ever playing again, but we're going to add, you know what I mean, talk to you and your mom and, you know what I mean, see this way through and just know the down effects that can occur if you do play.
Wow.
So, you know, me being a competitor in my mind, it's like, all right, cool. I mean, hey, it is what it is. You know what I mean? I didn't get this far for nothing. So I talked to my mom, man, talked to my head coach, man, and they were confident. And my coach seen just for me working out and how I worked my way back, it looked like I didn't miss a beat. So they all was on board. I got a special flap jacket made so I continue competing. But came back, man, that first game, man, it felt good to get back on the field, man. Going through spring ball before that was a challenge, you know, getting that first hit for so long. Passed that test. That was cool, man. Had our first game against Coastal Carolina. Had a real good game, man. You know, getting back into the flow of things felt good. And fortunately, man, I had another little slight injury, man. I had tore my adductor longus. It's like a growing injury. Tore that the third, fourth week. So I had just battled all the way back from this kidney injury, you know what I mean? And now I come to my senior year, it's like another injury, man. So it's like, so I missed a few games with that, man. And that was just a tough season, man. It's like I did all this to get to this point, and now here I go again, you know what I mean? So it was tough mentally, man, but I'm one of them guys, like, I'm going to finish what I start.
Yeah.
So regardless, I ended up sitting out a few games, came back the last 3 games, put some good stuff on film, had some good stats and things like that, and that helped. Ended the season strong, but it wasn't how I would have liked it to be, unfortunately. But again, it could always be worse.
Definitely finished what you start. So you earned your bachelor's degree in sport management. You know, how did it feel to achieve that accomplishment?
Man, after everything I done been to get to that point, man, it's a true blessing, man. One thing we all know, football is going to end one day. No matter who you are, how good you are, how far it takes you, it's going to end one day. And but one thing about that degree, it lasts forever. And when football's over, that can propel you into your next life after sports, you know. So just knowing that my supporting cast, my family, my friends, the ones that stuck with me through good and bad, my teammates, that was a proud moment just for my supporting staff to know, like, that's what they wanted ultimately.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, football is not who I am. It's just one thing I'm good at.
Right.
So to bring mom home that degree, I mean, that was like to see her face. I mean, I know I made it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I made it. Yeah. And I'm able to be an example for my cousins and that next generation of my family coming up to see that, like, it can be done. You know, so all in all, I mean, it was big, man. It was a great accomplishment, man.
Now, I think one of the things I think that you touched on, like when you're a guy like yourself that played at a high level your whole life, if you dominated at every level, and then when football is kind of taken away from you inside of your control, you know, and then when it's officially over, it's like a part of you dies. You know, a guy like yourself, you played a skill position. I played the D line, so they didn't really know me like they knew you, right? And obviously you were a big time player, but you know, you always were the guy. You know, you were always the guy, no matter what room you walked in, you were the guy. And the one thing about you, you were always humble, but it just comes with the territory of being a running back, of being a star running back, or being a star player. And people don't realize that, man, when the game is over and it's taken from you, you don't get a chance to finish out sometimes the way that you would like to. It's like a part of you dies, and you have to pretty much start over and find out who you are outside of being in the pads and cleats. And that's what people don't understand. You got to reinvent yourself and start over again. And what a lot of people don't realize too is sometimes when you're a Division I athlete, you don't get an opportunity to do internships. You don't get an opportunity to really to tap into that other part of the student athlete experience, because as you know, playing at that high of a level, the amount of film study that you got to put in, the amount of time you got to put into practice. And so the sacrifice, yeah, like you said, and then you put all that in, and then you don't get a chance to end the right way, where you started out with a bang, you were positioning yourself to go to that next level. And then when it ends the way it does, a part of you dies, you know, that athlete part dies, and then you got to figure out who you are in this world outside of that. But you ended up getting an opportunity to continue to keep playing. You got an opportunity to play in the CFL with Montreal. You know, what was that experience like for you?
It was a great experience. I would have never thought I would have played in the CFL, to be honest with you. I remember my junior year, I had a meeting with my running back coach, McManus, and he had told me that Montreal had owned the rights for me.
Wow.
Now at the time, I didn't really know what that meant. You know what I mean? Because I'm thinking NFL. So I remember him telling me, he said, "Yeah, Montreal, they acquired your rights. So if the NFL don't, you know what I mean, work out, you can always fall back on the CFL." So all that came to fruition. Moving forward, they reached out, went up there, man, and that was a whole experience because again, like you go from high school, you go from college, and now you go to the pros, but it's like everything is different.
Yeah.
So now I'm not only that, I'm going up to a whole nother country. I'm going up in Canada. So like that alone was just like, all right, gotta get my passport. Okay, gotta go up here. You know what I
I didn't even
mean?
think
Like,
about that. I didn't even think about the passport.
yeah, like, you
Yeah, I
gotta
didn't
get a
think about the
passport. Like, so I'm going to a whole nother country, learn a whole new style of game. Like, learning how the whole business thing go. Like I'm new to this. Like there was nobody I could really latch on or talk to because it's like I had to learn everything on the run. So Montreal, they had just won the Grey Cup the year before, so they were pretty much the team to be up there. So that was a good situation, phenomenal experience, man. It was very, very tough. Bigger field, lesser downs, only 3 downs. And like when you practice, there's fans, which was new to me. You know what I mean? Pretty much every day you're out there, you're competing for a job.
Yeah.
When you're in the locker room, there's dudes that you come in with, you look next to you, there's a whole nother dude coming in. So it's like when you're in them dorms, you hear that door knock, you thinking like, well, is it me? You know what I mean? And my position got changed because running backs really isn't a big thing up there since it's a passing league. So they had moved me to a whole nother position, to a slot wide receiver position. So that alone was a whole nother learning experience. Then not to mention how big the playbook was. Then I had to learn the whole terminology. I started understanding why receivers run certain routes to run other people open. Never really knew that. You know what I mean? But I'm learning all that. And it got so bad to the point where like they would have scripted plays for like certain groups. And like I'm literally like writing my plays down on my wrist. Just so I can remember, so I know what's going on. You know what I mean? Like that's how real it got. Like they expect when you out there, you got to know it. You got to go. It's quick. You mess that rep up, guess what? That's on you. You know what I mean? So it was a process. Just learn everything on the go. Unfortunately, I got released, not due to my talent, but because it's a numbers game up there. You only have so many Americans and so many Canadians. But that alone, being released, was probably one of the most devastating things that has happened to me up to that point, because I've never been cut before, you know what I mean, from any team, anything like that. And now I've learned a business. So now it's like I'm not gonna say I'm embarrassed, but it's like I'm like, when you come home and people's asking you 21 questions, yo, Jane, what's going on? Who you playing with? What you doing? Yo, all right, can't wait. And you sitting there like, you don't want to say it, like, I just got cut. You know what I mean? Or it's like you sitting there on that whole plane ride home, like, dang, how am I going to explain this? Like, what's next? You know what I mean? Like, so that right there, that was tough to soak in, man. But it was a great experience. I was appreciative of it. I learned a lot. But that's how I go.
Yeah, I think you touched on something important too. Like people don't understand like what's all going through your mind when you're an athlete of your caliber. You get cut, and you're not only just thinking about, okay, I get cut, what am I going to do? But what is everybody going to ask me? You know, everybody when you're in a position like yours, everybody's riding on you. Everybody's riding on you to make it. You know, whether they're riding on you to make it just for a sense of pride, you know, coming from East Liberty or coming from the Pittsburgh area. And you were a guy that was the poster boy because you were a guy that was great at every level. So everybody knew who you were in the Pittsburgh area, you know, but everybody's riding on you making it. So you feel like you let people down, you know, whether it's your mom or, you know, your other family members or aunts, uncles, friends, etc. You know, you feel like if you make it, then everybody can make it. And so when you don't make it, it does a lot to you mentally, man. And I think you touched on a big thing there. Like when you're on the plane, right? You're thinking about how am I going to explain this? Well, really, you don't have anything to explain, but
you really don't.
You just take that pressure on because, you know, you didn't just do it for yourself, but you did it for so many other people that made such an impact in your life and that opened up so many doors for you to even get to where you are, whether they bought you a pair of cleats, whether they bought you Gatorade when you needed it, whether they bought you some clothes when you was in need. You think about all those people and you start thinking like, man, I let everybody down, you know.
Like it's funny because it's like you said, like all the people who contribute to your success, like it takes a village.
Yeah.
It's not just you, it takes a village. You know what I mean? And there, a lot of my homeboys coming up, like they weren't able to play on a high school level, or they weren't able to play on a college level, let alone a professional level. So they're living their dreams through me vicariously.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So when they see me out there, like they see them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I took that on. You know what I mean? Like them was my boys. Like, hey, I'm going to ride this because if I win, we all win.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like you said, like it's not just about, it's bigger. It's not just me. You know what I mean? It's bigger than me. It's my team. It's my supporters. It's proving my supporters right and my doubters wrong. You know what I mean? So like I've always carried that through each level and each step of my career. And it's like when all that came down to it, then it was just like, dang, you know what I mean? And I still tried out with like different camps and things like that. But you got to think the NFL was a lockout coming out during that time.
That is right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? So they didn't know if there was going to be a season. So by that time, they were just signing pretty much veterans and things like that. So like that whole year, pretty much the next year, you got to compete with not only the class who didn't make it within the lockout, you competing with the next group that's coming in after the lockout. You know what I mean? And you know, in football, like it's a numbers game. And there's only two, three leagues. You got the NFL, the CFL, and you got the Arena League.
Right.
At that time. You know what I mean? So it's like when you put all that together, it's like, and then you got to think life still hits you. Them bills still, you know what I mean? Like, so it's like, all right, how much more do I continue this dream? Or is it like, all right, well, these bills got to get paid. I got to keep going. So you got to ask yourself, you know what I mean? So it was tough, man. It was really tough to know, like, all right, man, well, after a while you keep trying. And after that, man, you got to move on, man. You know, you had a great career, man. And, you know, just pay it forward.
Yeah, you definitely had a great run, man, while you played, but you were able to transition, man. So right now, you're currently the business analyst at UPMC. Talk about your current role.
Like you said, I work with UPMC. I'm a business analyst. I deal with health insurance with Medicaid. So it's like data entry, eligibility, things like that. That we touch on. And even that, I'm blessed to have a job. You know what I mean? During this pandemic, a lot of people I know aren't as fortunate. So I'm blessed to have a job. I have a good job at that. That was a process, you know, like jumping from football to the work world. You know what I mean? Like that wasn't the easiest. Like I had to find my niche going through there. You know what I mean? Like getting the resume together, all them things that you learned in high school, college, you putting all that together now. So, you know, like I've had a few jobs. I'm very fortunate, but the one thing that I've learned is that sports translate to real life. Yeah. You know, like there's no difference. Yeah. You need hard work, you need discipline, you need accountability. Yeah. So if you transition those into the real world, you'll be just fine. Yeah. You know, and that's what I've been able to do. And I've been successful at that as well. You know, it's the same thing. Like you come in, you got to prove yourself. Yeah. You prove yourself, oh, you get a starting job, so you get a promotion. Yeah. You know, so all those things go hand in hand when you look at it. So like I said, I'm blessed to have a job, man. And what can I say?
Nah, man, that's great. And I think the other part of it too is like you had those transferable skills that you learned being a student athlete, but the adversity part, knowing how to deal with adversity, knowing how to bounce back, knowing how to go to work when things might not be going great for you personally, but you still got to show up and get the job done, you know? And so at the end of the day, learning how to fight through adversity when mentally things might not be going your way, but learning how to work within that. But you had a great run, man, as an athlete, and you're having a good run here, even as a professional. You know, what are some other aspirations that you have? Like, what are some other things you want to do professionally and personally? And what are some other goals that you want to try to achieve?
Man, that's a great question, man. I know first and foremost, I want to continue to be a better me. I want to continue everything that I've done sports-wise. I want to be a better me in the real world. And I want to pay it forward. Like I said, whether it's success is one thing, and I've been fortunate with, but I'm at the point now where I'm all about impact now. Yeah, because impact lasts longer. Yeah. So whether if that's helping a kid get into high school, recommending a kid for college, things like that, helping out for people's camps, like, you know, Steve Bresson, he have his camp, you know what I mean? There's a lot of camps in the Pittsburgh area that I help out with. Maybe one day having my own camp, you know what I mean? There's so many different avenues that I can do that it's just like, I just want to make sure that I'm impactful in all of them, but making sure just being a better me. And not only just for me, but just the people around me. Mm-hmm. You know, that's one thing I'm real big on. But like you said, I mean, as far as aspirations, man, sky's the limit, bro. To be honest with you, I'm still filling this thing out. You know what I mean? Throughout my journey, I know God's not done with me. There's a lot left in the tank that I got to give, and I'm very fortunate and looking forward to what He has next. You know what I mean? So during this whole pandemic, it was a blessing because I was able to sit back and really gather ideas and from different people and things like that, and really just try to put it together and put together a plan. Because like I said earlier on, if I start something, I'm gonna finish it.
Yeah.
So now I'm just trying to, dot my I's and cross my T's, and we'll see what the future hold. But I definitely have some things in mind that I want to accomplish.
Nah, man, all that sounds great. So we're going to transition to the last segment of the show. It's called the top 5 segment of the show. So I got some categories for you. You give me your top 5 in those categories. So starting off with the first question, Eugene Jarvis, you played the running back position. Give me your top 5 running backs of all time.
So, all right. So now this is real tricky because when you say all time, I'm going to give you my 5 that impacted me. And the running backs that I like, you know what I mean? Because when you get the all time, you get to be, well, he said this, he said that. Like, I'm gonna go with mine that impacted my game.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start out with Jim Brown.
Ooh, Jim Brown.
Everybody know Jim Brown, his body of work. I mean, how can you argue that? Sweetness, number 2.
Yeah.
I mean, did it all. Yeah. Every down back, run you over, shake you, get that blocking, everything.
Yeah.
Barry Sanders. When the play's not there, he makes something happen. You know what I mean? That vision, just his highlights alone. Another guy that don't really get enough respect, Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
Everybody always says offensive line, but at the same time, you still got to be durable to be the NFL's leading rusher all time.
Yeah.
Still got to make them dudes miss it at the second, third level.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you look at that.
And they know he's getting the ball. That's the difference, too. It's not like some of the guys now, like they know he's going to tote it 30 times.
Exactly. So guess what? You got to stop it.
Yeah.
Obviously, they couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
And my last unpopular pick is my favorite, Darren Sproles. He kind of was the catalyst of all small running backs coming up during that era. He was a guy that I really mimicked my game off of because I knew he was the guy that was going to set the tone for the guys up underneath him, as far as like me and a lot of other smaller running backs during that time. Because like you said earlier, small running backs during that era, bro, was like, nah, if you weren't 6'2", 220, nah, like try again. You know what I mean? But so Darren Sproles was one of them dudes that I really looked up to, man, and try to pattern my game. And as far as he went, I knew that would open up doors for guys like me.
Yeah. No, that's great. All those guys are first ballot, man, Hall of Famers, man. And the guy you mentioned, Darren Sproles, man, he was one of the first small guys to do it at a high level. And you got to also see him on punt returning, too. He punt return, kick return, all that, man. So he was a big-time player as well. So let's move to the NBA. Give me your top 5 NBA players of all time.
My top 5 NBA. Got to go with AI.
Yeah.
Pound for pound, baby, the best around. You know that. So AI for sure. I mean, the GOAT, MJ.
Yeah.
Greatness. You got to have MJ up there. Kobe, man. Rest in peace, Kobe Bryant. Got to have Kobe in there, man. Closest thing to Michael Jordan we're going to get.
Yeah.
LeBron James. His body of work, man, and what he's accomplished and what he's doing, not only on the court, but off the court.
Yeah.
And my 5th is, I'm going to go unpopular opinion. Yeah. I'm going to go Damian Lillard.
Yeah.
Dame time. And I pick him because we share similar upbringings and like how like he handles his business. He's clutch.
Yeah.
Shows loyalty.
Yeah.
Doesn't jump teams, you know what I mean? Whatever he starts, he finishes.
Yeah.
I mean, but he don't get the respect he deserves.
Right.
You know what I mean? And so that I would say he's 5th on that my unpopular 5th list.
Nah, man, all those guys are big time basketball players. So my next question is man, you're a guy that likes to vacation, travel. Give me the top 5 places you've ever visited or vacation.
That's a tough one, man. That's tough. I'm gonna go Cabo, Mexico. Beautiful place, man. Beautiful place. If you ever get a chance to go,
yeah, I've never been, so I got to try that one out. That's came up a couple of times. Yeah,
put that on your list. Toronto.
Been there. Great place.
Love Toronto, man. Toronto's a phenomenal city, man.
Great.
Phenomenal. New Orleans. Can't go wrong down in New Orleans, man. The food, the energy, just everything down there. H-Town, Houston.
Yeah.
It's like my second home, man. H-Town, just the vibe, the energy, man, and let's see, my 5th unpopular opinion, I would say San Diego.
Oh yeah, no, San Diego's nice. Yep.
San Diego's very nice from the weather, the beaches, the vibe. Definitely, I would go San Diego, and New York would be like a close fifth, just because the energy up in New York, man, is different. I mean, you can make it there, you can make it anywhere, man. So it's very motivating up there. So.
Nah, you're right about that, man. And my last question of the top 5 is, give me your top 5 movies of all time.
Yeah, that's tough, man. You got movies.
It's tough, man. It's tough.
It's tough, man, because there's so much to choose from.
There is.
I'll go with let's see. Remember the Titans. Got to go with that movie. I mean, that movie is very impactful on so many different angles. Gladiator.
That's a great one.
Got to go Gladiator, man. Like my favorite part, man. Are you not entertained?
Yeah.
Why you are here? You know.
Yeah, no, that was great. That was great, man. That was great.
Gotta go Gladiator. Black Panther.
Yeah, great movie.
We already know the importance of that. Got to put Black Panther up there. Let's see, the last 2. I'm gonna go. Got to put Paid in Full in there.
That's my favorite. That's one of my favorites.
I mean, you can watch that every day. Like,
every day.
So many gems in there, man. And the 5th one, I'm gonna go. My unpopular pick, Money Talks.
Money Talks is great. Yeah, that's a great movie.
Money Talks. You know what I mean? That's my dude, Chris Tucker, man. Good dude, hilarious, man. And that's one of the funniest movies, man.
Nah, man, I definitely agree, man. And some of those movies are some of my favorite movies as well. We at the end of the show, and first and foremost, man, I just thank you for coming on the show, man. You've had an unbelievable journey, and one of the reasons why I chose you for this opportunity to come on this platform is to share your story. A lot of people know the Eugene Jarvis, the guy that was in the helmet, the pads, and the cleats that set records and everything like that, but they don't really know what's happening with you now. They don't know what all transpired in depth information that you gave us with some of the things that transpired with your injury. But one of the things I would say about your journey, if I had to put a word to it, is adversity. Every time adversity struck, you overcame it. We're not even talking about just the part of the injury part, but the doubters, because you were a smaller running back. You know, the college coaches that passed up on you, and then you made them pay for it by that second year by leading the nation in rushing at one point in time in the season. So the way you handled adversity, and another thing I want to say about your journey, man, you've been humble the whole time, man. The couple of times that we've crossed paths, we've probably been in each other's company probably about, 7 or 8 times possibly. Yeah. We got mutual friends. And every time I see you, man, I mean, you were always humble. You were always appreciative, man. And you always had a smile on your face too, And so you were just a guy that just embraced the opportunity, man, just to be where you were. And so I watched your journey from afar. And one of the reasons why I wanted to bring you on this show, man, is to tell your story so someone can learn from it. There's a lot of information that you gave that I think a lot of people can learn from. But the most important thing is how you handled adversity and you kept pressing forward. And now you want to give back. Some individuals face adversity and they're bitter, and they don't want to do anything for anybody else. And rightfully so, because you feel that way sometimes because things are out of your control. Right. But you stepped up to the challenge. You're transitioning greatly professionally, man. You haven't hit your prime yet. So I'm excited to see what's going to happen with Eugene, man, as you move forward in your life, man. And God bless you on everything that you do.
Oh, man, I appreciate you having me as a guest on your show, man. It's an honor, man, to be on your platform. And like I said, conversations like this, man, are needed, because with the new era we're in now, kids need this because from this interview, as long as I can touch maybe 1, 2, or 3 people, we've done our job. You know what I mean? And like I said, I appreciate you having me, man. It's always a blessing to share my story because, like you said, a lot of people know the helmet and know the football player Eugene, but they don't really know the real Eugene. You know what I mean? Like you said, like one thing I'm big on, I always pay homage, man, to the ones before me. You know what I mean? Always show love. Keep a smile on your face because it could always be worse. You know what I mean? Like
right.
You put all your problems in the middle, and then you see what other people's dealing with. You'll end up taking yours back. You know what I mean? So one thing I know that people that has been around me, they always preach being humble.
Yeah.
That's always been, you know what I mean, big. Like, because if you're going to be humble or you're going to get humble.
Yeah.
No way around that. You know what I mean?
It's noteworthy. I got to write that down. I never heard nobody say it like that. Yeah. You either be humble or you're going to get humble. That's big. That's big.
You know what I mean? So, like I said, with that being said, man, the times we crossed paths, you always been a cool dude, man. Like I said, I run into your pops, man, another good guy, man. You know what I mean? You come from a great family tree, man, and you successful. And like I said, you definitely doing things the right way, man. I appreciate it.
Nah, man, I appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on here and sharing your story, man. And like you said, hopefully it gets out there to the masses and somebody's touched from it and can learn from it. Well, thanks everyone for tuning into your journey. Be safe and God bless.
My man.